I don't really know how to say this without sounding like a terrible person. But it's been sitting in me for months, crawling under my ribs. And now that the snow's sealed us in this cabin, miles from anything normal, I can't pretend anymore. My name's Hannah. I'm 28. And I think I stopped wanting my boyfriend a long time ago. I think I started wanting something else. Someone else. But that's not the part that's eating me. It's that I didn't even realize it until I was alone on a mountain, with his mom. Derek and I have been together for 5 years. We were college sweethearts, the kind of couple that used to make people roll their eyes at how in sync we were. He'd rest his hand on my thigh under the table. I'd laugh at his jokes before he even finished them. We used to kiss like we were in a movie no one else was watching. But somewhere in year 3, something slipped. The kisses kept coming, but they started feeling like reminders. Obligations. Like one night this past fall, I leaned in while he was brushing his teeth, just wanting something soft, just lips on lips. The kind of woman who sees everything and says nothing unless it matters. Elise is, she has a presence. You don't forget she's in the room. Anyway, Derek and his friends bailed last minute because of a work emergency. But I was already halfway up the mountain with Elise when we found out. I figured we'd turn back. But the storm was rolling in fast, and she looked over at me with this calm, steady face and said, "It's too dangerous, stay. We'll ride it out." I think I would have left if she'd said it any other way. But there was something in her voice. Some quiet authority. I stayed. We chopped wood. Cooked together. Talked. I forgot what it was like to have a conversation where I felt listened to. Not just heard, but understood. Elise saw through me. She asked once, just once, if I was happy. I told her I didn't know. That night, she made hot toddies and we sat by the fire, the wind scraping at the windows. I felt warm for the first time in months. Not just in my body. In myself. She handed me a blanket and sat beside me, close but not touching. Our arms brushed once. Just once. And I swear to God, I almost cried. Because that one tiny touch made me feel more seen than every kiss Derek had given me all year. This isn't about Elise, not really. This is about me. About how long I've been fading in my own life. How long I've been holding on to something I didn't want to admit was slipping, because it was safe. Because it used to be beautiful. Because I didn't want to be the one to say this isn't working. But I remember the exact moment it all changed. It was that night, after we'd gone to bed in separate rooms. I heard Elise get up to stoke the fire. I padded out, quietly. I don't know why. She looked up at me, hair messy, no makeup, wrapped in an old sweater. She smiled. And something in my chest ached. Not in a sexual way. Not even romantic. Just in a real way. It hit me then, the person I used to be, the person who laughed, flirted, felt, she wasn't dead. She was just waiting for someone to look at her like she was still in there. And Derek. He hadn't looked at me like that in a long, long time. Derek's a trauma nurse. Night shifts, double shifts, constantly running on caffeine and cortisol. He saves lives. He sees things no one should have to see. And I used to think his exhaustion explained everything, why he was quiet at dinner, why he forgot things I'd said just hours earlier. Why he always reached for me in bed but never looked at me during the day. He touches to say I love you. I talk to feel close. That was always our difference. Back in the city, before the cabin, we had this stupid fight about dish soap. We were cleaning up after dinner, and I said we were out. He said, "There's some under the sink." I said, "No, there isn't, I checked." He bent down, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a new bottle with a smug little Tata face. It wasn't about the soap. Obviously. It was about how I'd been telling him for weeks that I felt disconnected. That I needed more. Needed us to talk, to see each other again. And he kept showing up with back rubs and kisses on the neck and a hand sliding under my shirt in the middle of dinner prep. Like affection could erase the silence. I remember snapping at him after the soap thing. You always have to be right. He looked hurt. Really hurt. What does that even mean? And I couldn't explain it. Not in a way he'd understand. Because he thought he was showing love. Because to him, love is in the things you do, showing up, fixing, touching. Not in sitting down, looking me in the eyes, and asking, what's really going on with you lately? Back at the cabin, Elise noticed the tension without even trying. She was folding blankets by the hearth when she said, lightly, you two seem out of rhythm. I wanted to lie. But instead, I said, we've been off for a while. He thinks I'm just tired. That it's nothing. She nodded, folding slowly, methodically. A lot of men mistake quiet for peace. That hit me. Because Derek loves when I'm quiet. When I don't start deep conversations at bedtime or cry because I'm scared I'm becoming invisible. He calls me low maintenance, like it's a compliment. But I miss being high maintenance. I miss being difficult and adored for it. One night at the cabin, he called from the hospital. Spotty signal. Said he missed me. Asked if I was sleeping in his old room. I'm in the guest room, I said. Elise was already asleep in hers. He made a joke I didn't understand and said, don't get too cozy with my mom. I laughed, but it came out dry. Because what I wanted to say was, your mom asks me how I'm really doing. She makes me tea. She listens. You kiss my forehead and go back to your charting. The next morning, I burned the pancakes. I never burn pancakes. I just stood there, staring at them in the pan like they were a metaphor. Elise walked in, tied her robe tighter, and said nothing. Just opened the window to let out the smoke. I didn't realize I was crying until she handed me a paper towel and said, you don't have to keep making it work just because it once did. And I broke. Right there. Because that was it, wasn't it? I kept showing up like maybe if I performed enough tenderness, he'd remember who we were. But I was starving. Starving for someone to choose me again. Not out of routine or comfort. But from real, uncomfortable presence. We didn't kiss at midnight that New Year's. I told Derek the roads were still frozen. That I'd come down the next day. He said he understood. Told me he'd warm up the apartment. I didn't know how to tell him I wasn't cold. Not anymore. The storm had finally let up by the third night. The world outside was a quiet, untouched white, and everything inside the cabin felt like it had paused, even the clocks were ticking slower. I was at the sink, rinsing the chipped mug I'd been using all week. Elise had gone upstairs early, claiming a headache. The fire was low. Derek had driven up last minute after his shift, surprised me at the door with tired eyes and an overnight bag slung over one shoulder. He kissed me when he came in. I let him. Now, a few hours later, he came up behind me while I stood in the kitchen. I didn't hear his steps, just felt the weight of his hands slide over my lower back and settle on my hip. Then the small, playful slap he probably thought I'd giggle at. I froze. It wasn't even hard. Wasn't even sexual, really. Just habit. Like how he used to do it in grocery store aisles or when I bent to pick up the laundry. But tonight, I stiffened. Didn't mean to, it was automatic, like my body had made the decision before my mind had a chance to lie about it. He noticed. Of course he did. Hey, he said gently, leaning in. You okay? I nodded. Too fast. Too fake. He turned me around and cupped my face, brushing hair from my cheek. You've been different lately. I couldn't meet his eyes. I hated that I couldn't. Because I wanted to. I wanted to want him. But when he leaned in to kiss me, soft, slow, I let it happen the way you let the dentist press a tool to your gum. Like it was something to endure, not feel. His lips tasted like spearmint gum and black coffee. Familiar. Safe. But I felt nothing. Not even a flutter. And still, his hand started to drift. One moving down my spine, the other resting too long just beneath the curve of my waist. Not quite inappropriate. Just, assuming. My fingers twitched. My stomach curled. I stepped back, gently. I'm tired. He blinked, gave a soft laugh like he was trying not to take it personally. Of course. Long day. I didn't mean to, I just missed you. I forced a smile. I know. He kissed my forehead, rubbed my shoulders like he was winding me down, not noticing I'd already unraveled hours ago. He went to the bedroom. I stayed behind, wiping a non-existent crumb from the counter. I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the log in the fireplace that had long since gone dark. My hands were shaking, just a little. And in my head, the same thought kept echoing like a slow, mean drip of water from a leaky faucet. Why does everything have to turn into sex? The fourth night was supposed to be special. Derek wanted to cook for us, real food, he'd said, not the cabin casseroles and instant cocoa I'd been living off with Elise. He wore the flannel I once told him made him look like he belonged in a Folgers commercial. Back when that was charming. We ate by candlelight, his idea. It was sweet, I guess. A little desperate. I sat across from him chewing rosemary chicken I didn't want. My mind kept drifting to Elise upstairs, reading by the fire in her thick socks and oversized sweater. I'd passed her earlier. She had smiled at me, one of those quiet, I see you smiles, and I had to bite my cheek not to break. Now, across the table, Derek reached for my hand. You okay? He asked. Yeah. I squeezed back, lightly. Too lightly. I knew he felt it. He tilted his head. You've been weird since I got here. I looked up. Weird? Distant. I don't know. You don't laugh at my jokes. You flinch when I touch you. You barely look at me. He said it all like he was reciting evidence in a trial. I stared at my plate. My throat burned. I'm tired, I said. You're always tired. He meant it as an observation, but it hit like a stone. And you always want something from me, I snapped, louder than I meant to. It's like I can't even sit in a room with you without it turning into this test. Whether I'll be warm enough or kiss you long enough or say the right thing back. He blinked, stunned. I didn't ask for any of that. I just wanted dinner. Jesus, Hannah. My voice cracked. You want the version of me who wants you all the time. Who melts into your touch and smiles and lets you grab her whenever and act like it means something. He dropped his fork. You're being unfair, he said. Quiet. Cold. I love you. I'm trying here. Yeah? Well, maybe you should stop trying and just listen for once. Silence. A long, thick silence. The kind that coats a room and makes it smaller. I drove 5 hours to be here, he said, voice clipped. To see you. To fix whatever this is. I wiped my eyes too hard and knocked over my water glass in the process. It spilled across the table, dripping over the edge. A pathetic, clumsy mess. Like me. Later, when I sat curled on the guest bed with the door closed and the lights off, I heard him pacing downstairs. I thought about how Elise had looked at me earlier. Not in pity. In recognition. Like she knew what it felt like to be touched too much and seen too little. And suddenly the story we were in, the snowstorm, the cabin, the unplanned isolation, it all felt like a metaphor. It's too dangerous, stay, she had said. But maybe the danger wasn't the snow. Maybe it was the quiet. The stillness. The mirror of it all. I buried my face in the pillow and whispered to no one, "Why do I only feel like myself when he's not touching me? Then, what the hell is wrong with me?" Shame burned in my stomach. I didn't want to hurt him. But I couldn't keep pretending I wasn't already gone. The snow melted. Slowly at first, drops sliding off the roof in slow-motion streaks, soaking the porch wood dark. The roads cleared, Elise drove back to the city, and Derek and I stayed a few more days. We didn't talk about it. Not the dinner. Not the crying. Not the sharp words thrown like knives across a candlelit table. We moved around each other like furniture. He cooked eggs one morning and didn't ask if I wanted any. I sat by the fire reading the same page 3 times, trying not to notice he hadn't kissed me good morning. The air between us had thickened into something shapeless and cold, not quite anger. Not forgiveness. Just distance. I missed him. God, I missed him. Not just the routine of us, the shared coffee creamer, the stupid way he danced when brushing his teeth, but him. The Derek who used to whisper ridiculous things in my ear in public just to make me snort laugh. The Derek who once stayed up all night with me because I had a bad dream about my mom dying and couldn't stop shaking. Now, he barely looked at me. Once, I walked into the room and found him staring out the window, arms crossed. His mouth was tight. His jaw clenched like he was holding something in. When he finally glanced at me, he didn't smile. Just nodded. Like I was a neighbor, not someone who knew the shape of every scar on his back. That night, I heard him crying. Barely audible, just a breath caught wrong, the sound of someone trying hard not to cry. I didn't go in. Not because I didn't want to. But because I didn't know how anymore. He wasn't the villain. He never was. He was just a man trying to love me the only way he knew how. And I was the woman who kept trying to need less and less from him, until there was nothing left to need. I watched him in the kitchen the next morning, sleeves rolled up, pouring coffee like it took effort to just stand near me. I missed his stupid jokes. I missed the sound of him singing off-key in the car. I missed believing we could still fix this. But the guilt was a weight I carried in my chest, pressing down every time I almost reached for him. How do you come back from making someone feel like they're not enough? How do you admit you're scared you never were the right person for them, and that maybe, deep down, you knew it all along? Later, while packing, he finally said something. "You're not the only one hurting, you know." I turned, startled. He wasn't looking at me. Just folding his sweatshirt, smoothing it out like it mattered. "I know," I whispered. He shrugged. "Sometimes it doesn't feel like you do." I swallowed hard. My voice barely came out. "I never wanted to hurt you." He nodded. "But you did." We stood there in the middle of the living room, surrounded by silence and old pine and shared history. The kind of silence that asks a question without words: do we keep going, or is this it? I looked at him, really looked, the slumped shoulders, the exhausted kindness still hiding in his face, even now. I didn't hate him. I didn't even stop loving him. But I didn't know if love was enough anymore. I exhaled. My throat ached. And quietly, finally, I thought, do I want to try again? Or am I just afraid to let go? And I still didn't know the answer. We left the cabin just after dawn. The sun hadn't fully broken through the clouds yet, just a faint wash of light over the treetops, like the world was trying again, tentatively. Like we were. Derek carried our bags to the car in silence. I followed behind, my boots crunching through patches of old snow and wet pine needles. The air smelled clean. Honest. I kept thinking, this is how things end, isn't it? Quietly. Without anyone slamming a door. The night before, we'd both sat by the fire. Not touching. Just close enough to feel each other's presence. He was nursing a glass of scotch. I had my legs tucked under me, holding a blanket to my chest like armor. "I don't think I know how to reach you anymore," he said, voice low. I stared at the flame. I don't think I know how to be reached. He nodded like he already knew that. Like he'd been living in the same silence as me for months and finally had the words to describe it. I still love you, he said, after a long pause. I love you too, I answered. And I meant it. But it was the kind of love you feel when you're watching someone walk into a fog, when you know they were once your home, and now they're just a shape disappearing in the distance. That night, he slept on the couch. Not out of anger. Just understanding. I watched him from the stairs before bed, his legs curled up too tight on the cushions, one arm draped over his eyes. And for a moment, I wanted to go down there. Crawl beside him. Say maybe. Maybe we can fix this. Maybe we can unlearn all the ways we grew apart. But I didn't. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of the silence between us. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt like clarity. Before we pulled away from the cabin, he closed the trunk, wiped his hands on his jeans, and came to my side of the car. He didn't say anything. Just stepped close and wrapped his arms around me. A real hug. Long and steady. No pressure. No expectations. Just warmth. I buried my face in his shoulder and let myself feel it, the grief, the guilt, the tenderness still breathing between us. He pulled back, kissed my forehead. And that was all. Now, as the road twisted us down the mountain and back toward whatever came next, I rested my head against the window and closed my eyes. Elisa's words echoed in my chest, it's too dangerous, stay. Maybe she meant the storm. But maybe she meant the truth. And I had stayed. Long enough to see that loving someone doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes, it means knowing when to let go, gently, with kindness. Before love turns into something colder than the snow. And I think I was finally ready to thaw. You think love ends in a bang, you know? A slammed door. A cruel word. Someone cheating or giving up or walking out. But sometimes, it ends in a slow drift. Like snow piling up outside while you're too busy watching the fire die inside. That's what it felt like with Derek. Not a breakup. Just a quiet surrender. We didn't stop loving each other. That's the cruel part. We just stopped being known by each other. He tried, in his way. And I tried, in mine. But love without understanding? It's like holding water in your hands. No matter how tight you cling to it, it slips through the cracks. I used to think desire meant being touched. Now I know it means being seen, fully, even in the messy parts. It means someone noticing when you go quiet and asking why, not assuming it'll pass. It's someone listening, really listening, even when what you're saying makes no sense. Even when you can't say it right. I stayed in something safe for too long because I was afraid that wanting more made me selfish. But silence doesn't equal peace. And physical closeness doesn't always mean you're emotionally close. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't walking away angry. It's walking away while still loving someone. While knowing they're not a bad person, just not your person anymore. So no, there wasn't a fight. No final kiss in the rain. Just me. Driving down a mountain. Feeling my heart crack open in the quiet. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel cold. What I've learned? Love isn't what saves you. It's what challenges you. And if it's real, truly real, it won't make you smaller to fit inside it. It'll make space. For your voice. Your longing. Your whole self. And if it doesn't? It's okay to leave before you disappear. Even if the snow hasn't melted yet.